Kemi Badenoch is the new Tory leader, which makes her the official leader of the opposition. And in her first interview in this role, she's managed to crash and burn really hard. Now, for me, if I was coming into this job, you'd have to look at it with an objective mind. You've just had the worst election results the entire party's had in its history. So, of course, people are going to want to know what you did different and what sets you apart. So in order to get a handle on that, Laura Kuenssberg's wanting to know what Boris Johnson's failure was and what Liz Truss's failure was. But instead of using that as a platform, she gets really tetchy about it. I'm not here to talk about them, she says. This was a perfect opportunity. She could have said, yes, Boris Johnson eroded the public trust. Yes, Liz Truss eroded the financial trust of the Tories. But I'm different, and this is what I'm going to do different, and this is how we're going to improve our standing with the public. But she didn't. I mean, I know you probably don't want to throw your previous boss or your fellow party members under a bus, but you're going to have to be ruthless. And in her first interview, she's defending Partygate. Whether she believes it or not, the public are disgusted by it. And the fact that Johnson and his cronies were partying while families were staying away from dying relatives, it's just common sense that you don't stand on a platform in your first interview and start trying to claim that everyone was just blowing it out of proportion. She then ends up squirming in relation to the budget. She does some great mental gymnastics on how opposing tax rises that are being made to pay for NHS services and education is not in effect taking away those payments if she opposes the tax rises and didn't do it. Obviously, Kuenssberg doesn't push back on this, but the fact the entire interview is kind of setting her up for a good start with her party. But instead of taking this opportunity to really capitalise on it, she just gets tetchy and annoyed of being asked questions. How dare you ask me questions? I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about what I want to talk about. Well, it doesn't work like that. I can see her not lasting more than a year, if I'm honest. She rubs people up the wrong way, and if she doesn't try to improve her interview technique, I can't see anybody wanting to actually vote for her to be Prime Minister.
What's the truth about what went wrong with Boris Johnson? Was it honesty?
Well, you will remember that I resigned during the Boris Johnson government. I thought he was a great Prime Minister, but there were some serious issues which were not being resolved. And I think that during that tenure, the public thought that we were no longer speaking for them or looking out for them. We were in it for ourselves.
So it was partly for you about the truth. Were the public wrong to be upset about Partygate? You say it was overblown.
No, they were not wrong to be upset about Partygate. The problem was that we should not have criminalised everyday activities the way that we did. People going out for walks, all of them having fixed penalty notices. That was what ended up, creating a trap for Boris Johnson.
But wasn't the problem that people in government didn't obey the rules?
Yes, that's right. People in government didn't obey the rules, but they were not MPs. They were often staffers, and I think that the way that we had created those regulations ended up entrapping...
The Prime Minister and the Chancellor both got fines. It wasn't just people who worked for them.
Indeed, but as we saw with those events, when people see the full story of what actually happened, they understand that things were created, problems were created because of the way that we had created the regulations. But if I may, one of the things that's very important is that we draw a line under all that happened over the last 14 years. We've lost an election, a historic defeat, and simply churning over every single incident, I don't think is going to be helpful for dealing with where we are today.
So if you want to draw a line then, what is the truth about what went wrong with Liz Truss? Was it recklessness? Do you think that perhaps as the new leader, in order to move on, you should say sorry to the public about the turmoil that caused?
Well, Laura, what I'm here to do is talk about how I'm going to be leading the Conservative Party. We can have a post-mortem on each and every Prime Minister over the last 14 years, but I don't think that that's particularly helpful for your viewers. There will be a post-mortem. There's plenty of time for us to think about how we can improve the offer that we have for the public.
You stood on a platform yesterday and said it was time to tell the truth about what went wrong with your party.
Yes.
So,
and I have said that, but what I'm not going to do is sit down and go through line by line every single thing that everybody did wrong.
I'm just asking you what went wrong with Liz Truss, who was in power for a matter of weeks, who caused huge economic turmoil, who lots of people in your party said was disastrous for your prospects. So I'm just asking you what you think the truth is on what went wrong. We don't have to go on and on about it. Just brief it. What do you think went wrong?
But the point I'm making is that we had a historic defeat. I stood up yesterday and said that we need to be honest, that we got things wrong. What I don't want to do this morning is start listing all of the things we got wrong. There's plenty of time to do that.
What do you think went wrong under Rishi Sunak's premiership?
So, as I said, there are a lot of things that we got wrong. standards slipped. I think that we had policies which were not appealing to the public. The main issue in particular was a loss of public trust. Promises on immigration and on tax were not kept, and that's something that we need to change.
Would you reverse their increase into employers' national insurance? Because that money is earmarked to go for the NHS. So would you reverse that and, by implication, take that money away from the health service?
I don't accept the premise of that question. We didn't do those things in order to increase the funding for the NHS. So it's not a binary suggestion that if you don't do this, then that means there's less money for the NHS. What I will say, actually, is look at what the OBR stated about the budget. That there's no £22 billion black hole, so that's dishonest. That most of the employer increases are going to be passed over in lower wages and higher prices. That's not good for people. Simply saying that it's going to go into the NHS, who will also have to pay higher employer national insurance, as will local councils who have to hire private companies for social care. Economically, it is not coherent.
When she'd found out she'd won, Robert Jenrick forced a smile out, but it was his wife that actually stole the show, and you can see her doing just that in the video that's on screen now. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.